ThatGreatBusinessShow.com is brought to you by De Facto Shaving Oil, the best anyone can get. Made in Ireland, sold worldwide.
Welcome to That Great Business Show, episode 14, with myself, Conal O'Moran, and my co-host, Jamie Heaslip. This week we have a very special guest who will chat to us for about an hour about a family business that employs 46,000 people across 35 countries worldwide and is valued at about €9 billion. Yeah, it's probably a little unfair to call Smurfit Kappa a family business, but it was founded by Jefferson Smurfit, built up by Michael Smurfit, and is now run by the third generation of Smurfits in the form of CEO Tony Smurfit. And it's Tony who joins us on That Great Business Show today. Welcome, Tony Smurfit.
Good morning.
We do business differently, Tony, so let me start with a question that I doubt you have ever been asked before. I was speaking to a woman who knew you in your youth, in your 20s actually, and she said you could have had a career as a male model. Was that ever a consideration?
Absolutely not. That is absolutely the most ridiculous thing. I was a skinny little weed, so there was no way that I
Not according to this woman who remembers you very fondly.
Well, I don't know who she is, but she needs glasses, that's for sure. That is an unusual opening, I have to admit, for a business show. But anyway.
On that note.
And by the way, it's not a family business. It's a family-orientated business. I wish it was a family business, but family have very little of the stock, unfortunately. But my grandfather, my father always took the view that it's better to have something small of something big rather than something big of something small. So that was sort of like the thinking with going public back in the 60s and then raising capital when they could to develop the business. And that's really how we have a very small shareholding in a huge public company. But I think, Conal, when I think about it, and you said family business, it's not a family business, but we try and treat everybody as family. And that's what makes Smurfit Kappa a very, very different big business. We always talk about things like culture and values, and I try and bring into the company my three key core values, which are loyalty, integrity, and respect. And then, of course, safety on top of that. And that sort of permeates through the organization. That doesn't mean that everybody is perfect. There's 46,000 people. I'm sure we have all sorts of people in the company. But by and large, I'm really excited by the overall esprit de corps that exists in the company. And that is a fundamental difference to Smurfit Kappa, to every other company that I see that's big. That doesn't mean you can't have small companies that have that or even better than us. But as a big company, it really makes a difference. And that's why we have, if you go through our management group, everybody stays. That can be a bad thing at some points, but,
Okay, how do you instill them? Obviously, our listeners would love to know the magic formula, how to wave the magic wand of instilling that kind of culture or any other culture. Like, I know you don't beat it into them, but how do you cajole them into having those attitudes and those aspirations? It's
constant communication. When the pandemic started, I sent a message to everybody that said, there are three things we have to do: communicate, communicate, communicate. And that's what we did. And that's what we do as a company. We are constantly communicating our values, constantly instilling what the company is about, constantly bringing forth initiatives that are, people-orientated initiatives in many instances that really help the people understand that they're part of something that is not just a place to go to work. It's interesting. When I speak to our management and management groups, I say, guys, when you retire, if you're lucky enough to get to retirement, when you retire, if you look in the mirror and you say, I've made money, you have failed. Because it is not just about making money. It is about a lot more than making money. It is about the communities in which you operate. It's about the people that you actually you employ and how you look after those people. It's about your empathy to those people. And so if enough people continue to say that, it eventually feeds into the meat of the company. And that's what we do.
It was a very nice thing that you showed me is that last Friday was your birthday and you showed me a video that they sent you, I presume unrequested by you.
Of course.
All of your senior management from right around the world singing you happy birthday.
Oh, wow.
I'd say that's pretty exceptional.
That's a treat.
It actually, unfortunately, it wasn't around the world. It was just the Europeans that came up with that.
Sorry.
But the Latins are much more warmer than that, so they would have done something as well. But yeah, it was really a big surprise. We've been doing these virtual visits because part of you talk about culture. Part of the thing that I do is I visit a lot, and obviously during the pandemic, that's not been possible. So I came up with the idea that we'd do virtual visits with every factory. And so now I've done about 220 factories
What
in
does
the
that
last
look like? So, literally, what does that look like?
Well, you've got a Microsoft Teams. So basically, I go on the call. A couple of the other senior managers go on the call. So my head of Europe, if it's Europe, or Latin America will be on there. And then a whole other bunch of senior managers will come on the call. And then I open it up to the management team of a plant. So you'll have the sales manager, the HR manager. Depending on the plant size, you could have up to 15 people from a particular site if it's big enough.
Yeah.
But normally it's between 5 and 10. And then, I do a spiel about the company and where we're at and what's going on. And then I hand it over to my CFO, and then I hand it over to my HR person. And then I hand it over to them, and they talk for 10 minutes. And then I wrap it up. And that's just sort of like, we try and keep it to about 25 to 35 minutes.
Oh, wow.
It's always finished, I'd say, around 30 minutes. There's one or two that have gone much more than that. That's when the results are exceptional. I say, give me more, give me more, give me more.
What value can you get out of that? What are they telling you? How do you work it to really drill in 35 minutes, in 30 minutes?
What value do I get? I get
a CEO.
For me, my value is I connect with those people, all of them. So if there's, let's say, an average of 7, and I've done 200, it's about nearly 1,500 people that I've connected with at the senior level of the company who have seen me and have heard me thank them for their participation in what has been a very unusual and depressing period for a lot of people. And so you try and uplift them and say, I use the analogy, I say, Smurfit Kappa is like a great big quality river. And into it, many different tributaries go. Some are big and some are small. And I don't obviously differentiate with those people if they're big or small. But I say, you are part of the tributaries. And if I make you stronger and if you make yourself stronger, the river gets better. And that's Smurfit Kappa. And we are getting better and better and better. And so, of course, in more recent times, because over the last about 5 weeks ago, we did a capital raise of about 660 million. And I'm able to explain that will allow them to make the river stronger because we're going to invest more in their business, grow their business more. And that will really help them bring their own organizations. Because the way we run our business, Conal and Jamie, is every unit is an island. Every unit is a profit center. They're responsible for their cash flow. They're responsible for their operating profits. So they're like their own individual businesses. And, I'm there to dispense the capital. I'm there to motivate. I'm there to set the strategy. I'm there to bring the right people in to make sure through my own people. And that's what we do. And so now telling them that they've got more money to invest if they've got the right idea. And I always emphasize, you know what, you don't get this money for free. Yeah. Think of me as your bank manager,
And how do they justify those suggestions that they make to you? Big presentations, 2, 3, 4 hour presentations to you about what wonderful stuff that they could do if only you gave them 100 million?
Well, it wouldn't be, very seldom it's that much, but let's say on average for every unit, it's on average about between 5 and 10, or between 3 and 10, let's say. They have to justify it. They have to make a presentation. It's not just to me. First of all, they have to do their country manager. Then it has to go to the European level, and then it has to come to me. So there's a number of steps in the chain, but they have to justify that they can get a return on the money. I am a bank manager to an extent to make sure that they deliver. We have a very strong performance culture. It's really nice to be nice. It's really good to be good, but you can see our returns, they're pretty strong. And the reason why they're strong is because we say, if you ask for money, you better deliver. If you don't deliver, well, then you have a different conversation with them.
Coming from your perspective in terms of having an overall viewpoint of the business and not necessarily getting into the nitty gritty of the different islands, using your language. How do you what is your focus now for the next 5 and 10 years, and what are your 3 kind of main priorities? I know you mentioned culture, you mentioned values, but for you, what are your 3 main focuses, and how do you push that through? How do you communicate that down?
I mean, I'm kind of unusual, Jamie, because I've grown up in the business, so I know practically every factory that we have. We've 350 plus factories around the world, wow. and obviously when we buy something new, I go and see it, and then I spend time in it, and I know the historical factory. So it's kind of unusual in the sense that I know practically every person and every factory. So that's an unusual thing for a CEO that's sort of come through the operations. When I actually look at what is our plan, when I took over CEO some 5 years ago now, I set a new vision for the company, and then I set a strategic plan for the company, and we're now in a second iteration of the strategic plan. And the vision is to be a globally admired company, dynamically delivering secure and superior returns for all stakeholders. And so that's sort of what we try and live by. I know that sounds like corporate buzzspeak, but it's not. I mean, if you say to people, we really want to be globally admired, and you say, how is that going to happen? You push it through your communities, you push it through the initiatives that you do.
I was actually going to, how are you measuring global admiration? What are, as you said, people can like you, but you still got to perform at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably an impossible thing to measure. I mean, obviously we do our own internal benchmarking, how we're improving internally. We did a benchmark, a pulse survey of 46,000 people. We got 20,000 people returned the response. So it's
pretty impressive.
Pretty impressive.
That's great engagement.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Actually, our engagement scores on the bigger surveys that we do are higher than that. They're in the 80s. We don't get quite as good as mark as we got in this particular statement. So we asked people 10 questions. This is in May. How are we communicating? How are we doing with the pandemic? Is there anything you're missing? 94% positive engagement and positive view about management's role. So that made me really happy. Wow. We don't have that kind of score on the bigger survey about all the other things, which are compensation and, opportunities and things like that. We're in the 60s, which is not as high as I'd like, but, something we're working on.
Yeah.
But globally admired is something that's hard to put your finger on. I mean, I think we are really admired internally by all of our people. And, the messages that I get from our people, are really, truly heartwarming sometimes because, we gave every single employee €200 at Christmas across the world. So we did that because it was the right thing to do in the year that we did it.
Regardless of the market, because obviously €200 here versus 200
in El Salvador is a huge difference.
Yeah.
But actually, Jamie, it was interesting. You take a country like Sweden, and again, I go onto these calls and I ask people, what do your people think of the €200 we gave? And if you go to a country like Sweden, they say, it's fantastic. It's not for us. It's the gesture is nice for us.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that we know, to use the old French saying of égalité and fraternité, we know that our colleagues in Mexico and El Salvador and Costa Rica are getting €200. And that for them, that's, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. I got a lovely picture last week from a guy in Mexico who works on the shop floor who said he got all his Nike kits, runners, T-shirts, and he's laid them out. This is the first time I've ever been able to buy Christmas presents for all of my family.
Ah, sweet.
That was amazing. It was amazing, yeah.
In fact, that's what you want for Christmas, isn't it? He's a big Nike head.
Well, their stock went up on Friday after the results, so they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, they've had a good year. I think most of the apparel guys have gone okay.
ThatGreatBusinessShow.com is brought to you by De Facto Shaving Oil. The best anyone can get. Made in Ireland, sold worldwide. It's all go, le cuirsi gno, on ThatGreatBusinessShow.com. That Great Business Show. This could be your ad on That Great Business Show.
So you obviously have a close leadership group. What do you see? Because you've been in the business it's been such a strong business for so long. What do you see is the key metrics, or not metrics, but the key elements or characteristics of a really good high performance team?
I think you've just said it there. You act as a team. There's no first amongst equals per se. You are a team and you don't take the credit for things. You just go on and you do things as a team. And those that are trying to be individual, everybody is individual, but if you do things in an individual way, then you don't win. And so we do act as a team. And I always use the example of Wigan Athletic, which is unfortunately my football team. Very unfortunately.
How did you land on that one?
He was born there.
I was born there. But I always use the example of Wigan, which beat Man City
Had to get that in.
Probably 1910 or something, was it?
2013 FA Cup final. Are you a Man City supporter?
No, but now I'm thinking I'm born in Tiberias, so I was like, do I have to support Tiberias now? I don't even know if they have a soccer club or a rugby club.
Exactly. So any team can win any match. I mean, listen, you're a rugby player, you know that. I mean, you've seen sometimes where a team has come together against you, and you said, Genie Max, they're actually playing much better than they are individually.
Munster at the weekend against Claremont. Claremont away, it looks at half-time, game's over, and Munster do what Munster do, which is come together as a team and win in the end convincingly.
So teams are what matter. And so you're asking what makes a business team successful is that, you work together. And if you don't work together, if everybody goes off in their own different directions and you don't have somebody pulling it together, then it doesn't work. So, I've always learned that.
And are you the puller together?
Of course, the CEO is always going to be the puller together.
Okay, so therefore,
it's like a coach.
Who is your enforcer? Because you will need an enforcer. If Jamie goes offside, somebody has to tell him.
Well, today's world is full of corporate governance, especially in public companies. And
I don't mean anything untowards. I mean, you were talking about your Mavericks.
Yeah, you can't tackle the person in the boardroom.
Obviously, I talk to my colleagues a lot. So and I talk to friends. I have a couple of advisors that I talk to. I talk to, and I listen. I suppose I listen. If you talk about what makes good leadership, you listen. Take, for example, the idea that we just had for the capital raise. That didn't come from me. And now I'm kicking myself. It didn't come from me. But my CFO and one of our advisors, a guy called Mark Kenny, came up with this idea. And they approached me and they said, what do you think? And I said, damn, I didn't think of that. So they came up with the idea, Ken Bowles and Mark. And then we ran with it, and we thought that was the right thing to do for the business for the long term, to put us on a different track, to raise capital so that we can invest quicker in our business. So that meets the aspirations of the organization. It also meets the aspirations of our vision, which is to be a secure company. So we've already got it increased to investment grade by a company called Fitch. And we would hope that S&P and Moody's will follow at some point in the future. Certainly, both have put us on positive outlook since we've done it. If you look at all our metrics, they are well below investment grade, or well above investment grade metrics. We are in very good shape. The business is doing, it's hard. I have to pinch myself sometimes to believe that our business. For every business that's doing badly, there are some businesses doing well out of the pandemic, medical supply businesses, food businesses, things like that. And packaging is one of those businesses that is doing well out of the pandemic. I mean, that's not to say we just happen to be in the right space. There's some terrible things happening out there. And, we've done our piece, I think, as a company to give back to society. We've given a lot of money back to, people in the communities in which we operate. And we've just even done some more here locally in Ireland recently, because we think that's the right thing to do as a corporate, and that's something that corporates should really get behind going forward is, corporate capitalism is also about being good in the society that you operate. And, you can see from the brochure I've given you about our community brochures, you have to do that. And as I say, if you end up being a manager and all you've done is make money and you haven't done good, then you haven't been a good manager in my mind.
A question, great humility to kind of actually go, when your team came to you with that idea to raise the money and kind of go, wish it was mine, but you know what, it's a great idea, we're going to kick on with this. and you raised 660 million. And you're talking a lot about community and investing. What are the two areas that you're looking to invest the money now over the next, I'm guessing 5, 10, even longer, because your business has been around for 50 years, 60 years now, and so you played a long game. So what are you investing in over the long game?
Well, I mean, we've 350 plus factories around the world, so a lot of them need natural investment. So it's actually, that 660 is only a portion of the investment. That's in addition to what we would have normally invested, which would have been about 500. So we would bring that 660 or 650. There's some fees in that, unfortunately, but not to you guys.
They always get their fees. They always get their fees.
So we would be putting, let's say, an extra 200 million a year on top of the 500, maybe 250 a year on top of the 500. So we'll be investing somewhere between 700 and 800 million in our business for the next 3 years. And then after that, we'll have another plan, Jamie. We won't, this is just, we'll always invest something of the order of 500-600 million in our business. But obviously, as the business grows and as its needs grow, we see more opportunities, we'll continue to invest. But, all of those investments, as I say, have to be justified. I mean, we're very keen on that.
And that takes time as well, because I'm just thinking, he's managing all these plants, he's talking to all the management right around the world, and then you also have to find time to find the investments, justify the investments, and then spend 800 million. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, but we have great people that bring me the ideas. I mean, it's not like, as I said, we just talked about the capital raise, but, in all of the factories we have a beautiful business in our portfolio called Bag-in-Box. It's wine and Bag-in-Box primarily. And we've grown that business from zero in 1994. It actually came in my bailiwick as a special project way back then. And we've grown that business from zero to a very, very substantial business within our business now with high margins. To give an example, we bought a tap, the dispensing tap. And when we bought it, it was doing 500,000. This year, it will do 500 million dispensing taps.
Jesus.
So, I mean, it's
direct correlation with the pandemic.
And we have factories in Argentina, Mexico, Canada, Russia, Italy, Spain, and France. And that started with one small factory in France in 1994 when we took over the French business. And the reason we kept it was because my father was going to see this business, and it was at the back of a box plant. And he was going to see this tiny little business at the back of the box plant, and he got calls from two of his competitors, both of whom gone out of the business, who said, "Hey, we'd like to buy this business." And you know what he said? He said, if they both want it, it must be something. So he said, "Tony, go and look after that and see what you can do with it." And now it's a fantastic business within our business. And it's growing this year. This year, they've grown their profitability 20%. They've grown their sales by 12%. So it's been,
And obviously, we've mentioned COVID and the boxes and people using Amazon, and that's hopefully not going to change again. That is the future. And the other big change possibly or probably is shift from plastic. In fact, yesterday I saw my Tetra Pak milk carton has increased to 1.75 litres, and they are big signing 75% less plastic. I presume you're going to ride that wave as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you see the opportunities for our company, the three main opportunities are, as you say, e-commerce. It's not just Amazon. It's the Hut Group. It's Zalando. There's thousands of, everyone is trying to figure out how do they get into the e-commerce platform. Because, if you're a Unilever, you don't want to, people create their own sites and say, listen, we want to buy our detergent directly from you or directly. So there's a whole big sea change going on in the e-commerce world. I mean, in the world of personalization, that's a mega trend. I mean, I bought Quality Street for my friends because somebody sent me one with it didn't say Quality Street, it says Smurfit Street. So I did it to all my friends in Ireland because I only do delivery in Ireland and England. So I did send about 20 or 30 out, with Heaslip Street or I won't even go to your name.
We're on the same street. Okay. He only lives down the road from me.
So I won't even go. Anyway, but it's a great gift, but it costs 20 quid instead of Quality Street that's costing,
5 or 10.
I
gave my dad a granddad was from my daughter. A granddad Cadbury's bar yesterday on it. Now we didn't. But the personalization is huge.
It's huge, and that has to be direct e-commerce, and it has to be in boxes. Because it has to be protected. So you think about that as a mega trend. Then you think about sustainability as a mega trend, which is, of course, every time you go on to Sky News, other than recently with Brexit and with COVID, it's about plastic in the sea, and our whole mission is not against plastic, because we are plastic is a part of life and it's going to be here, but it's about against waste, and that's what we're working on. And then the third thing that is an advantage for our company is we are the most innovative in our sector. So when somebody wants to come to us and say, I want to package that cup, we optimize that so they don't have waste. And so when you've got all the applications, the tools, the science, I mean, we have 1,000 designers sitting in, factories across the world, all connected, which couldn't have happened, 10 years ago, all connected by the internet and all connected, sharing design, say, hey, you've got a cup designer you've got a cup that you've manufactured in southern France. What ideas have you for me in Argentina? Blah, 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 blah. And,
you guys operate on such scale that it's, from a business point of view, it's smart not to have a whole lot of waste, not alone for the environment. I mean, it blows me away when you say, how many employees?
46.
46,000. How many businesses do you reckon you supply a year?
Oh, we have about 66,000 customers, something like that.
My brain is just exploding here with the
understand
scale.
that. Yeah.
You were number 8, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Whoa. That explains a lot.
That's a joke, Jamie. Don't make that hard questions now.
Going back to your fundraising, it just crossed my mind when I was reading all about it that there was an attempt to buy Smurfit Kappa, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, odd. And I'm just wondering, was this idea of fundraising a clever one and timely to make sure that somebody else didn't come knocking at your door, to be ahead of them, to be doing things, to be seen to be doing things as well on behalf of your investors?
No, I mean, not even in a scintilla of a second that I think
that's gone. So
but I mean, at the end, the company that approached us was International Paper. They made an offer. It wasn't good enough. So it said if they wanted to make a higher offer, they could have. They didn't. So therefore, end of story. And the company has gone on to prove that with the share price around 38, 39, with the dividends that we've paid, and then if you take into account the IP share price and the dollar, that we're materially above that price right now. But obviously when you're a public company, and as I said earlier, that, family do not have a big shareholding in the company. When you're a public company, you are automatically always for sale. You're always in the shop window. And the only way that you cannot be in the shop window is if your share price indicates that you are the acquirer rather than the acquired. And so therefore, my job as CEO is to make sure that the share price of our company adequately reflects the value that's attributed to it. If somebody wants to pay more than that that we think it's worth, then that's their right to. We didn't think it was right. I'm especially pleased during for my 46,000 people that they remain independent. But that's me personally. If any other party offers a lot of money, they're always entitled to buy Smurfit Kappa.
Reporting every quarter, which is your obligation as a publicly quoted company, is that a pain in the face?
Well, I have a great CFO who actually does most of that work. So, and together with his team, but we actually changed the requirement is to report every half year. But we do report every quarter. We report a market update every quarter, and every half year we do a full pack, so to speak, in a half year and full year results.
Which costs you a lot of money and time.
It's a lot of resources. But one of the great strengths of Smurfit, as it used to be, the company that my father built in the 60s, 70s and 80s and 90s, was the financial reporting was always top draw. I mean, we know our numbers across the world on day 2 of the month. So I know I will know on a normal month, maybe not January, because that's the end of the year, but on, let's say, the 3rd of July, I will know what my numbers are for each factory in the world, on the third day of the month, second day of the month.
Phenomenal.
Well, you need that sort of cadence, that sort of scale. I got a taste of it when in my time in Google. Like, you always had to know your number. You always had to know what sales finance was, how you were trending towards it. Very, very interesting. But something that's kind of sitting in my head is, so you said you talked about family and treating everyone in the business like family. And you used to travel quite a bit, but obviously not right now. You can right now. How do you personally, as CEO of a huge public traded company, keep balance in your life? Because obviously you stay fit and everything like that. And how do you enable your employees to kind of keep the balance?
Balance is, sometimes it's like a pendulum. Sometimes there is a bad work-life balance. That's the fact of life. But sometimes, it pays off. I'm CEO. I don't go to work. I actually enjoy what I do. So, the idea of me working it's not working. It's just enjoyment. I love being with the people. I love being with the organization. I love being with the plants. That's probably more difficult for me not to go and visit over the last little while. And I love being at home. So it's.
Well, let me reframe. How do you? So obviously, then there's times when pressure's on, and then times when you ease. Like sport, because sport is the exact same thing. You absolutely love it, and you don't see it as a job. But so, how do you decompress, for want of a better word?
I watch CNBC, Bloomberg. No, how do I suppose I would watch a bit of horse racing, American football. I actually have to give up American football because when I bet on American football and the team fumbles, it drives me mental. So I think it's bad for my blood pressure. So I'm going to have to give that up. So that's, I suppose, a bit of gambling on football or.
Do you have a particular team?
In American football?
Yeah.
I think this guy Mahomes in Kansas City is just out of the park. He's just...
Our general manager in the Bridge will be delighted with that. He is a Patrick Mahomes mega fan.
No, but it's just a different league. But so he's amazing. I mean, there's always been great superstars that come along that you admire so much, like Ronaldinho, if you remember back to Barcelona. Everybody thought he was the best. And, of course, Messi. And then, I don't particularly love him, but Ronaldo is great. And, there's some really fabulous superstar sports people that you can really admire. And Mahomes is certainly one of those guys.
ThatGreatBusinessShow.com is brought to you by De Facto Shaving Oil. The best anyone can get. Made in Ireland, sold worldwide. Subscribe today to That Great Business Show on your favourite podcast platform, including Apple and Spotify. ThatGreatBusinessShow.com is brought to you by De Facto Shaving Oil. The best anyone can get. Made in Ireland, sold worldwide.
You used to pick up on James' point about travel, you used to spend an awful lot of time in the air because you told me this before. How many days a year were you flying?
Well, I would fly, let's say, 4 days a week.
52 weeks a year.
Maybe not during Christmas and during the summer. So 200
plus days a year?
Probably.
In the air?
Probably.
And I think you also told me that there isn't a Smurfit company jet.
No, nothing.
So did you queue up? I always meant to come back to you and ask you this. Did you?
I should. You always have to be careful with one of the last questions,
No, we've got plenty of time.
Okay.
So did you queue up 200 and something times over a year twice? Because you obviously had to go with the next flight as well, back again. I mean, that's an awful lot of time.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I do have the priority lane.
Oh, thank God.
So that always does help. Trust me, that does help. It cuts queue in, let's say, a third,
You still have to go and stand in a queue, whatever, whether it's one person or three people or whatever, and get on a plane and sit in a plane and travel.
But it's very different.
I just don't get it.
But it's very different world to what it been when, I don't know, I know you're not that much older than me, but I mean,
he's way older than Terence.
It is a very different world today, in every sense. We have communication at our fingertips.
Absolutely.
So therefore, whether you're in an office or an airport lounge, sitting down, you're still on your computer working or communicating or on the phone. I mean, when I grew up, there was no mobile phones, when I started in business, like I know that's hard for you to believe.
No,
Jamie.
I still remember the old payphones, all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, my
But
my
can you
daughter,
imagine that I remember when I took my first job in the UK, going up and down the motorway, having to stop off at service stations to dial in the payphone. So I'm afraid you remember that too, Conal. But you won't remember that, Jamie. I mean, that's the reality. I mean, we communicate much differently today than we did 20 years ago, and being in an airport is not a problem. I mean, I always go to a lounge, therefore I sit in a lounge and I work in the lounge.
And you are now in an era of technology where you can either Zoom or Team or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So is the travel going to ease off?
Let's say, I mean, we spend about 50 million a year in the Smurfit Kappa organization on travel and entertainment. So
Either very good parties or a lot of travel.
well, we're very oral and get together culture. I mean, that's part of what makes a culture is you meet and you join each other. But a lot of it, if you actually sit back from it and say, well, was that necessary to go to Amsterdam for a 1 hour meeting or a 3 hour meeting? And it's not sometimes just about the 1 hour meeting or 3 hour meeting. It's about the meeting afterwards and the meeting afterwards and around the coffee machine or whatever. But there is no way that Smurfit Kappa is going to spend 50 million, for the foreseeable future going forward. I would say we'd spend half of that. And that should be our target, because you do want to meet. You do. So, for example, if my Latin American guys come over for their quarterly review, I love to see them. I love when they come over. But instead of coming over 4 times a year, or I go over there once. So instead of them coming over 3 times to Amsterdam and me once to there, I'll go once there and they'll come once to Amsterdam. And then the other 2 we'll just do virtually. So we'll cut costs by 50%.
Do you sit around with your CFO and others on the finance side and meticulously do line-by-line analysis like that and to figure out where every penny goes and where, the bah humbugs and say, yeah, we could
I do not.
Okay.
I do not, but my people do.
And the CFO comes to you and says, Tony...
No. It goes lower down than that. Okay. In the sense it'll be the country manager. It'll be the plant manager. He'll be asked by the country manager, who'll be asked by the regional manager, who will then come to me. So, for example, we will be saying we've done a zero-based budgeting issue based upon the new working. How many people? Is there some scope to do things differently? And of course there is, and that's one of the things that we'll do.
Jamie was asking you there about a 5 or 10 year plan. What is your 5 or 10 year plan? Because I was looking at your dad's CV, and you're 57 on Friday, and again, happy birthday to you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And so in 10 years' time, you will be older than he was when he kind of retired. Now, did he ever retire? I don't know, but you know what I'm saying.
It's a very scary thought, really. I mean, I can tell you that...
All your kids.
The guy had to retire in his 30s. Don't do it.
Well, if the pandemic taught you anything, is, in my view, retirement is not an option. Yeah. I think that... I mean, it's different for you, Jamie. You're in a sport where if you don't retire, you will get crushed in a sense, physically. I mean, I think that anyone that retires needs to do something very active thereafter. And I say this I had a wonderful guy retiring after 32 years in the company or 34 years in the company on Friday, and I did a Teams call with him. And I said, I'm not going to congratulate you. You're only 62. I'm not going to congratulate you for leaving the company because, I think it's wrong. But, I wish you the best and I love you still and you're always welcome to come back. But, I think it's a silly thing for anybody to retire when they're active and they're healthy and they've got a good job and they like what they're doing. If they don't like what they're doing, it's what I say to all of the graduates. In addition to the thing that I do with the plants, we do these graduate workshops. And so I did a couple recently, and I said to them all, I said, listen, if you don't like what you're doing, get out and do something that you enjoy, because life's too short. And if you don't really embrace the company and the values of the company, and you don't want to see your future here in the next 10 or 15 or 20 years, leave now and try and figure out what you want to do, because, this is a good company. It's a good place to work. You'll have a good career. And if you're really strong, you'll move up in the company. and you'll have a great future, and you'll be able to raise your family, you give them security, and and that's a good place to be. Some people are much more ambitious and they want to be the next CEO. Some people are less ambitious and they want to stay exactly where they are. But you've got to say. It's a long way of answering your question.
But you still haven't answered my question.
I know.
Politics is next to this, man.
I'm waiting for you to tell me.
I'm not asking you. It's not that I'm avoiding it. I just went on a sidetrack. Okay, so no, actually, I will never retire.
Come on.
I may retire from Smurfit Kappa at some point.
Okay, yeah.
Because I do think at some point you need to let the next generation come through and do something. But at the same time, when I leave, I will definitely be involved in business in some way, shape, or form.
Sorry,
Jimmy?
Conal. Like you talked about at the very start, not necessarily doing a job for money. If that not being in the gig for that, right? Like once you get past a certain threshold, that I think that comes out of the conversation. For you, right? Whenever, I'm not going to say when you retire, but let's say, when you are on holidays with the grandkids and all that sort of stuff.
Janie.
Yeah, I know. It's a scary proposition,
That's a scary proposition.
But when you're looking back, what do you want your kind of legacy to be?
Very simply that he was a good man. I mean, that's what I want. I want people to say he was a good leader, a good man, and a guy who did the right thing. That's very simple. I mean, I really believe that we do the right thing in Smurfit Kappa most of the time. I mean, we're by far from perfect, and we'll never be perfect. As I say, we've 46,000 people, so you can't, I'm sure we've got all types of bad people in our company somewhere along the way in certain countries. But, at the end of the day, what I really want that people would say about me, that I was a good leader, I shepherded the company very well. I was a good steward of capital. I gave people advancement, and it's all about people.
If you were to take the track that Jamie has just mentioned again, I'm still going to chase you on this one. What would you do?
Buy business. What
kind of a business?
Oh, probably something allied to what I know. I mean, the day that you, I think, go out of areas that you don't know is the day that you.
But you've been a director of a number of other companies and different industries as well, so you kind of know different industries.
Yeah, I mean, buying a business would be probably something similar to what I know, but obviously not competing with the mothership, so to speak.
Yeah.
But if I was going to invest in companies, that's a different thing. I mean, I'm an investor in a lot of different shares, and it's funny that I had a very good experience when in the early 80s, probably well before you were born, Jamie, that I decided to invest in the stock market, and it was just at the time of the personal computer coming out. So it was the first time the IBM, which don't even make personal computers anymore, but IBM brought out their personal computer, and I was in college and I was on my personal computer, and this little arrow used to come up when I was connecting to Fidelity Investments. It's called MS-DOS, and I never actually twigged that I should buy that bloomin' company rather than Eastern Airlines and all the dumpy companies that I bought that actually all went to the wall. And because I had a strategy to buy weak companies because they get better, but actually buy strong companies because they're the ones that will get better. The weak companies will always stay weak. And there's a fundamental lesson behind that. The reason is it's because of people. Good people want to work in good companies. If you're not that great, you'll go and you'll get a job in a bad company.
And that is a perfect segue for me, because I'm really interested, when I was digging up more stuff about you, that I came across this European Roundtable of Industrialists. You have an exceptional list of people that you are connected with, 50 absolute top industrialists around Europe. And anything I read about it, it says that you are, when I say you, the group is exceptionally very powerful and has its fingers deep into Brussels, and very, very effective at promoting industrial policy, particularly competitiveness.
Yeah, I mean, The European Roundtable is something actually my father joined, I would say 30 years ago, 25 years ago, and retired from, and then Gary McGann took it over, and then I took it over from Gary, our Smurfit Kappa's position in there. It is a bunch of very intelligent, highly skilled CEOs. It is actually quite interesting how many change, though, every year. I mean, there's about at least 10% of them are changing every year.
Voluntarily, or are they given
sometimes
the grand
yes,
order?
sometimes no. But it is a bunch of very well-regarded companies that are trying to shape together an industrial policy. Some of them are in telecom, some of them are in the industry, some of them are in food businesses, consulting. So there's a mix of different companies in there, and I'm hoping that they'll all come to Ireland, because I've actually invited them to Ireland in a couple of years. So,
do you sit around? Obviously, nobody sits around on cigar fumes everywhere and drinking brandy. What is the format of those meetings? Or
there's a very strong group, subgroups that actually do the work, which feed into the main body, and the main body meet twice a year to discuss the work that's done.
This is on top of everything else you do.
Yeah, but then you have meeting. I mean, they are actually the European Roundtable does actually have the chance to meet with the various heads of state, or just to talk to them about what's important to industry in Europe. And I was lucky enough to sit with Merkel and Macron in Toulouse about a year ago, a little over a year ago. That was interesting.
Were they impressive?
Do you know who was really impressive? Because she just got the job, was Ursula von der Leyen. She was very impressive. Sorry, they were impressive, but I mean, and I've met Macron a couple of times, and he is very impressive.
And what was so interesting about Ursula?
She just talked a lot of sense. I mean, that was her first week or second week in the job, so it was. But she just really was smart. I mean, the way she was answering.
By training, isn't she? I think so. Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, married to a doctor as well. Yeah,
but no, she was very together. So, I mean, it's a bit funny when you look at what's going on now in Europe and the UK. It's a kind of an interesting time, and you see the Barnier and Ursula von der Leyen, and you see Boris Johnson and Frost, and you sort of compare the two.
Continue.
No, I will not.
You're listening to That Great Business Show with Conal O'Moran and Jamie Heaslip. ThatGreatBusinessShow.com. ThatGreatBusinessShow.com is brought to you by De facto shaving oil, the best anyone can get. Made in Ireland, sold worldwide. This could be your ad on That Great Business Show.
Brexit going to harm your business at all?
Well, it depends what kind of Brexit it is. If it's a bad Brexit, it will be very harmful for the UK, and it'll be harmful for Europe, but very harmful for the UK. I've been a strong proponent that a Brexit, the Leave vote, was an act of national self-harm for England. It was built on lies. It was built on falsehoods, and it's just the time that was in it. I mean, you don't hear about the migrant crisis anymore in the right-wing press in the UK. You don't hear about all of that stuff that was happening during the Brexit negotiations, and you have a bunch of very I would say strange or difficult people that have a view on life about England's position that is different to what the real world is today. And I again was lucky enough to go and meet Theresa May and express through the European Roundtable how dangerous it was, and I was with car manufacturers who expressed the same thing, and it is extremely dangerous for England. I was born in England, so I feel an affinity with the UK that they should be European. I mean, it's ridiculous that they don't have an open trade relationship with Europe.
So you strike me as a man, Tony, that wouldn't leave something to chance. And so I'd imagine you are trying to control what you can control around Brexit.
Mm-hmm.
So can you give us an idea of what you're doing with the business to plan for this little bit of unknown, but there's some certainties around it. Like how are you planning for the business at such scale out of the UK and Europe?
I mean, we have a fabulous business in the UK. We have 2 paper mills and we've about 30 facilities that make boxes or, small pieces of boxes or big boxes. So we've fantastic position in the marketplace. I think we're number 1 or number 2. We're there or thereabouts, number 1 or number 2. We've brought in enough stock for things that could be disrupted, like starch, which is effectively glue, things like that. We brought in from continental suppliers, but if it's disruptive for a long period of time, it'll be bad for everybody, and our customers will get affected. So we really can't do a lot about it because it'll be our customers that get affected as their raw materials don't arrive. That's going to be where the issue is. So, I mean, we have a motto: look after the downside, let the upside look after itself. In this particular case, all we can do is just row with what's going to happen. I still believe that, they won't go to a hard Brexit. I still believe that. Maybe that's wishful thinking, because there are a bunch of people who actually want a hard Brexit in the UK, and a lot of them are in government. But I still have to hope that the lunatics don't take over the asylum.
Mentors. I think you kind of hinted earlier on that you take advice from many sources. Just wondering, who are your mentors? Who do you actually go to? Would you frequently have a chat with your dad or other people?
I would
like that?
frequently chat to Dad. I mean, I would say Dad has never been one of my mentors. He's always been a
Your
friend.
dad.
No, he's always been a friend, actually. I'd speak to Dad twice a day.
Would you? Would you really?
Yeah. I mean, he's 85 now, and I think obviously I have to be a little bit careful because, especially in closed periods, that I don't tell him anything could be perceived as non-public information.
But I presume he knows the industry like the back of his hand. He does, and beyond.
And he still reads about the industry, and he's still interested. So, as an 85-year-old man, I am. You want to keep him interested. I mean, and he is interested. So therefore, I feed him the publications and things like that are interesting, and I tell him what's going on in the company that's, available to the public. So he would have been somebody. I think there's two guys that I would say have been really formative in my career. Was my uncle Dermot, who is a brilliant genius. I mean, absolutely brilliant guy. He is. Was always lost in Smurfit Kappa, actually, because he saw it as his duty to be in Smurfit Kappa, and he was vice chairman, and he had a great job. And then towards the end of his career, he didn't have such a great job, and then he left when Madison Dearborn took over in 2002, and he created, huge businesses for himself, and he did fantastically well. Himself. So he was a real entrepreneur. And he was one of my advisors growing up. And then the other guy was a guy who's long since departed, a guy called Pat Barrett, who was an English, real sort of, and he would have been a Brexiteer par excellence. I probably would have fallen out with him if he was still alive. But he was certainly a strong man that, always believed in the values of what a business is. And he used to work for Metal Box and companies like that.
And would you have formal meetings with these people? Would you sit down with them and say, listen, I'd love to...
I didn't.
This is just kind of...
Yeah.
But
what I do tell the young kids, I say, get a mentor, get somebody who's interested in your career, who's going to help you develop yourself. And so when I say to the graduate, they all ask me that particular question, what's important? And I say, it really is important for you to find somebody who is interested in you, who's going to help you, learn, because everybody makes mistakes, and, help you develop your career and be there for you in times of trouble.
You are very, very keen on your graduate program.
I am very keen on all of our programs. I mean, we have a graduate program, which is our young kids who've been in for a year, who are super smart. And then we've got an advanced managers program. Then we've got a general managers program. And we've just initiated in the last 2 years an INSEAD program where all the senior managers are getting trained into a 3-week course where they all go to 3 modules of 3 weeks, where they get training with different groups from around. So there's about 40 of them or so in each module. And so they go through it together. towards the end. So, they do two in France and then one in Switzerland or Germany, which is the last one. And I go to all of the finishing ones. And now, obviously, since the pandemic, that stopped.
Yeah. On that, how do you measure the value for money that your company gets out of that? Is it measurable?
No. I think it goes back to the first question about culture. How do you build a culture?
My first question was about you being a male model.
Okay, so
there's modelling class as well.
That's
right?
blank. That's blank. See, I'm thinking like a model. That's blank. So, no. I would say that it really helps the whole cultural side of things. All of these programs are about building a culture. So everybody who hears me because it's not just me that speaks. It's the CFO. It's the leader of Europe. It's the leader of the Latin Americans organization. It's specific planning people. It can be any discipline, sales and marketing. So everybody gets a whole view of the company.
You must have an incredibly low turnover of staff because it sounds like you invest so much in your staff in developing them or providing routes for them to develop.
Yeah, it's. As I said earlier, if you go through the senior management of the company, my CFO has been with the company nearly 30 years. I've been with the company 35 years. The guy who runs Europe, who we acquired in 1994, had been with the company 8 years or 10 years before that. So, he's been with the company 30 years. And that's the CEO of the Americas been 30 years. So, sometimes it can be a bit much as well. You can get blockers for career development. So, it's the same in sports, I guess.
There's bottlenecks everywhere. Yeah.
So you got to be careful as a leader that you sort of say, okay, well, that guy is a guy behind him who's ready to take that. And then, and the same can be said about me. The board should actually one day say, is he a blocker? Do we need to bring this guy who's really fantastic forward? So that's something that you need to keep under observation. But, when you have a high level of performance as we have, and our results are there to see in the third quarter that, we're far in excess of our nearest competitor, and that's really how you can judge yourself, and your customers are still with you. We've done all of our customers for this year. They continue to keep them all, and they all like what we're doing. Not saying that we're perfect. Sometimes they'd like lower prices. Sometimes we'd like higher prices.
Funny that.
Yeah, that's the nature of the world.
Are there any other young Smurfits coming through? Will there be a fourth generation?
I'd love to think so, but it's probably unlikely given the age difference. We had one Smurfit come through into the company and from another part of the family, and he didn't like it. He thought it was difficult. So therefore, difficult in the sense that the work is hard. Going through the whole program to get to the top is going to be a long, arduous. And, we are, just because you're a Smurfit, is not going to help. It didn't help me. It helped me in one sense that I got in, but after that I had a whole bunch of battles to win. When in 2002 Madison Dearborn came in, they kept me, which was a miracle. I was still.
Did you honestly think that it was a miracle?
No, I didn't. No, of course not. I was COO of the company, and I knew the guts of the company, and I think they were smart enough to realize that it was wise to at least initially see what I was like. Now they might have turfed me out after that, who knows? But I think that again, one of my closest friends in the world is one of the Madison Dearborn guy. He called me last night to wish me a happy birthday, and it was ticked off he'd forgotten the day before because he only thought of it too late at night. And he sat at my table on my 50th birthday party. So, in business you can make great friends as well, and he's a great friend. And
what do you think? So when they came in 2002 and to now, what do you think your top strengths are?
Mine?
Yeah.
I'm a good people person, Jamie. I motivate people well. I listen. And, I think that, I have a good ability probably to to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. I mean, if somebody's bullshitting, I shouldn't say that.
You're there. This is a podcast.
Okay,
should hear him.
You should hear me. No, okay, I'm being polite today.
Okay, if somebody's BSing, I pretty well know it in our sector.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say that once I go outside our sector, I would know it. But I mean, I'm a basically a good people person, and I bring people along with me. Always have.
Very important to do that.
I think it's the same in rugby. It's the same in every sport. If you have a good team and you have a good leader of a team, if you have a bad conductor, you don't make good music. So that's my strength is people.
It's been a few years ago since you and I sat down around a table before to record an interview, and say if we looked at the same amount of time, 2, 3, 4 years. Now, I know you're not allowed to make forward-looking statements, but what would, in the general...
Spoken like a stockbroker, actually.
What would you think you might do with Smurfit in those couple of years?
Well, you can never think about acquisitions, but I mean, we've always done acquisitions, we have a pristine balance sheet now. So obviously, if the right opportunity comes up, we'll take it. I think last time we met, I'd say that the company has made a huge leap forward in its whole innovation agenda. I think every 5 years, we're going to continue to develop that. So even in our own existing footprint, we'll be much more efficient. We'll be much more innovative. We have these mega trends working for us. So, if nothing else happens outside, as in acquisitions, the company will be much stronger than it is today. We have a view of progressive dividend. We have a view, as I said, the capital raise has given us a completely pristine balance sheet with one of the lowest debt to EBITDA ratios in the sector. I think as long as we can keep the people side of it right, Conal, and keep our people motivated, and we keep doing the right thing, the company will be much better than it is today in 5 years' time.
Okay, that is Tony Smurfit, CEO of Smurfit Kappa. Thank you very much for joining us on That Great Business Show. And we will thank, I think, Alison for the sound today. Thank you very much, Alison O'Dwyer, and to Jamie Heath, my co-host. And this will broadcast on over Christmas, and we will have a second one with a man called Conor McEnroy, not as well known as Tony, equally interesting, and that will also record and broadcast over the Christmas period. Thank you very much, Tony Smurfit.